mood. She's a wee bit overwrought.
Oh, bullshit.
Oh, don't they make a lovely couple?
They do, they really do. I'm surprised you haven't taken the plunge. Still waiting for Mr. Right to come along, are you?
Well, there was a young man once, you know, wartime it was. He was in the RAF. Killed over Berlin.
There were lots of good boys went that way. Lovely boys, all of them.
Ah, that they were.
They certainly were.
Cheerio!
Bye-bye.
She does get furious sometimes. Actually, I wrote a poem about it once.
Now then, my dear, Mrs. Croft doesn't come all this way to listen to you blathering on about your poetry and such.
There's Sister George talking again. Do you know, it's wonderful how the characters evolved over the years.
Well, one does learn from experience.
One does indeed. But on the other hand, experience isn't everything. We don't want Applehurst falling behind the times now, do we?
No, of course not.
One must constantly examine criticism, and if it's constructive, we must act on it. Ruthlessly, if need be.
Criticism? What sort of criticism?
Oh, I wasn't thinking of anything in particular.
But what?
Well, that, I'm afraid, brings me to the unpleasant part of my business. But first, would you show me to the little girl's room?
Alice, show Mrs. Croft to the,
This way, Mrs. Croft.
Thank you.
little girl's room.
Is that door up there on the left?
Thank you.
George, what are you doing?
Shh, keep a lookout.
George, you can't. You mustn't.
My own personal file, isn't it?
Put it back.
Shh. Look, Sister George Applehurst's here is confidential. There you are.
I think she's coming.
What?
She's coming.
And Emmeline said, I don't think I want another Dopscon today, but you must have one, because they are good for you, said the old lady with the apple red cheeks.
This is Emmeline, my favourite doll. Say, how do you do, Emmeline?
How do you do?
Oh, how do you do? Are those bathroom scales accurate?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, good. Now then.
Well, I'll just make myself scarce.
Oh, please, sit down.
Thank you.
You won't hold it against me if I speak quite plainly.
Please do.
It's my unpleasant duty to haul you over the coals and administer a severe reprimand.
Oh, really?
Oh, believe me, Sister George, I would much rather let bygones be bygones.
Let sleeping dogs lie, eh?
Now, this morning I received this letter from the Director of Religious Broadcasting. I should like to have your comments.
It's a lie. It's an utter bloody lie.
Please, Miss Buckridge, calm yourself. Kindly hand me back the letter.
It's preposterous.
You're not going to deny that you were, in fact, drinking?
Well, I had a few drinks, yes, with some friends. But I certainly wasn't drunk.
In point of fact, I gather you walked out on a rehearsal.
Yes, I did, but that was a matter of principle. Not because I was going to hunt down nuns.
No, I trust not. Nevertheless, this memo is quite specific.
Charlie, was I drunk on Wednesday?
Wednesday? No, I don't think so. No, not on Wednesday.
There you are. Of course I wasn't drunk. I can remember everything that happened, everything I did.
Miss Buckridge, I'm sure your memory of subsequent events is excellent. But the fact remains that according to the Mother Superior of the Convent of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, you boarded a taxi with...
I thought it was empty.
A taxi. Bearing as passengers 2 novitiate nuns from Ireland who had just arrived at King's Cross Station.
Well, how was I to know there were novitiates?
Their status in the hierarchy of the church is totally irrelevant. You boarded this taxi in a state of advanced inebriation and proceeded to assault the 2 nuns, subjecting them to actual physical violence.
George.
Oh, shut up. It wasn't a bit like that. In the first place, I certainly wasn't drunk. I saw this taxi draw up at the traffic light, so naturally I got in. And there were these two black things screaming blue murder.
Well, why didn't you immediately get out again?
Well, I would have, but the taxi started off. And anyway, I'd had a very nasty shock myself. What were they screaming and flapping about? I thought they were bats. Vampire bats. It was they who attacked me. I can remember now getting all entangled in their skirts and petticoats and things. And if the taxi driver hadn't pulled me free, they might have done me a serious injury.
A deplorable anecdote. According to the Mother Superior, one of the nuns required medical treatment for shock. She appears to have thought it was some kind of diabolical visitation.
George, how could you? Don't you start, Tom. It was all a ghastly mistake.
No doubt. But it will take some explaining.
Fancy reporting it to the Director of Religious Broadcasting. What a nasty thing for a holy woman to do.
The Mother Superior is responsible for the nuns in her charge.
Then she should jolly well make sure they know how to behave in public. I got the fright of my life in there. They were like mice, albino mice. They had tiny little white faces and weeny little red eyes, and they were vicious. They scratched and bit. I still have the tooth marks. Look, there. I've a jolly good mind to put in a counter-complaint to the Mother Superior. They deserve to be scourged in their cells.
I can hardly put through a report to the controller informing him of your allegation that you were bitten by two nuns.
Why not? For all we know, they might have had rabies.
Oh, please, Miss Buckridge, let's be practical. We are all concerned with retaining the trust and the respect of the public. Now, we do all we can to gloss over minor disciplinary offenses. But we simply cannot tolerate this sort of behavior.
What do you want me to do?
You must write a letter of apology to the Mother Superior.
You mean humbling myself?
Don't worry, Mrs. Croft. I'll see she does it. And I'll also see she doesn't get into any more of that kind of mischief.
Now, there speaks a true friend. You're very lucky to have someone like Miss McNaught to rely on. Treasure her.
I'll treasure her, all right. But what about Applehurst?
Oh, well, that's another rather more complex problem.
I mean, have they decided anything for the future? Are they planning any changes?
I'm afraid I can't say anything about that at the moment.
Well, I say I'm sorry, you know, if I've been a bad boy.
Well, goodbye, dear Sister George. Keep your chin up, because things are never as bad as they seem. But remember, no more walkouts at rehearsal, And if things get difficult, just give me a call.
Ah, well, it's the creaking gate that gets oiled.
A somewhat unfortunate simile. So nice to have met you.
I'll see you out.
Oh, thank you.
Cheerio.
Goodbye.
Bye.
You know your way from here, don't you? Bye, then. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to have met you.
Bye.
The dirty, rotten little sneak. The crummy little swine. Did she say anything? Did she drop any hints behind my back?
No, just general comments, you know. She asked me about my poetry. Made one or two passing references to nuns in taxis.
What do you mean?
Nuns, you know. N-U-N-S. Brides of Christ.
I knew you'd bring that up again. Whatever happens, it's always my fault.
Well, how could you? How could you make such an exhibition of yourself?
Don't you start on me as well.
Well, I think you owe me some sort of explanation.
Oh, come off it. You want a graphic description, do you? A blow-by-blow account? Well, I say, when I think of all those skirts and petticoats and things,